Before you were born, before you had a name, before you took your first breath on Earth, a decision was made. According to Dolores Cannon's work, certain souls did not accidentally arrive on Earth during the years 1955 to 1969. These souls volunteered, fully aware that this lifetime would be heavier, lonelier, and more demanding than most. This generation entered the world during a period of massive instability. War shadows, emotional coldness, broken family structures, and a planet vibrating with fear rather than love. Many of you were born into households where emotions were not spoken, or not safe to express, and yet, you came anyway. Why? Because Earth was reaching a critical point. Dolores Cannon explained that during this time, the planet required anchor souls, individuals capable of holding higher frequencies while surrounded by chaos. Souls who could absorb emotional weight without collapsing. Souls who could survive hardship and still remain compassionate. From early childhood, you likely felt older than your age. You questioned authority. You sensed injustice before you could explain it. You felt responsible for others' pain, even when no one asked you to carry it. Many of you were labeled too sensitive, too serious, or different. But this wasn't weakness. It was preparation. You weren't sent here to have an easy life. You were sent here to stabilize the timeline. This generation was meant to experience the density first, so others wouldn't have to carry it alone later. You absorbed generational trauma, unspoken grief, and emotional burdens that didn't even belong to you. And still, you kept going. If you've ever wondered why life felt like a constant uphill climb, even when you did everything right, it's because your soul didn't come here to rest. It came here to hold the line. And this is only the beginning of what you were sent to do. Dolores Cannon often said that the most difficult missions are given to the strongest souls, not because they are fearless, but because they are capable of enduring awareness. If you were born between 1955 and 1969, your life likely never followed a smooth or predictable path. Even when things looked fine on the outside, something inside you felt displaced. You may have tried to live a normal life, normal job, normal routines, normal expectations, yet it never truly fit. There was always a quiet pressure in your chest, a sense that you were meant for something else, something deeper, something unnamed. According to Dolores Cannon, this feeling comes from soul memory. These volunteer souls arrived with knowledge still active beneath the surface. Not conscious memory, but energetic memory. Your soul remembered other existences where truth was clearer, where communication was honest, where purpose wasn't buried under survival. That's why this world often felt heavy to you. You didn't just experience hardship, you felt the weight of the system itself. The lies, the emotional suppression, the constant rush without meaning. You sensed that humanity was living far below its potential. Many of you struggled with authority, not because you wanted control, but because you could feel when something was false. You may have felt exhausted at a young age, old before your time, as if life demanded maturity from you before you were ready, or before anyone taught you how to carry it. Dolores Cannon explained that these souls were intentionally placed into environments that would test endurance. Broken families, emotional neglect, early responsibility, even loneliness, not as punishment, but as training. Solitude sharpened your inner awareness. Struggle strengthened your emotional intelligence. Pain opened your compassion. You were not meant to escape difficulty. You were meant to transmute it. That's why people often come to you with their problems. Why strangers open up without knowing why. Why you feel drained after being around crowds, yet fulfilled when you help someone heal. Your soul understands suffering, not intellectually, but intimately. And because of that, you became a stabilizer in a world that desperately needed grounding. If you've ever wondered why life kept pushing you to grow faster, harder, deeper than others, it's because your soul wasn't here to blend in. It was here to hold a frequency others couldn't yet sustain. And that responsibility shaped everything about you. Before your first breath, before your name, before this lifetime even began, your soul agreed to something extraordinary. Dolores Cannon revealed that souls born between 1955 and 1969 were not random incarnations. They were part of a pre-incarnation agreement, a voluntary contract made when Earth's future was uncertain. Human consciousness was approaching a critical threshold. If awareness failed to rise, fear would dominate the planet. So volunteers stepped forward. Not beginners, not curious souls, but experienced consciousness that understood what density, limitation, and emotional pain would feel like. You knew Earth would be difficult. You knew memory would be wiped. You knew you might forget why you came. And still, you chose to enter. This contract was not about fame, wealth, or recognition. It was about frequency anchoring. Your role was to live among humanity and quietly hold stability while the world went through chaos. That's why your life may have felt like a series of initiations. Every challenge refined you. Every disappointment forced you inward. Every betrayal tested whether you would close your heart or deepen it. According to Dolores Cannon, these souls were placed at key energetic points within families, workplaces, and communities. You weren't meant to lead movements publicly. You were meant to prevent collapse silently. You anchored calm in crisis. You absorbed emotional turbulence. You carried wisdom without language for it. This is why so many of you felt guilt when resting, as if stopping meant failing your mission. Why relaxation felt undeserved. Why you stayed strong even when exhausted. Your soul was working even when your mind was unaware. Some of you experienced moments of almost remembering, vivid dreams, sudden waves of emotion, flashes of knowing that didn't come from thought. Those weren't imagination. Dolores Cannon emphasized that these volunteers often felt like outsiders in their own families. Different values, different emotional depth, different sense of truth. That's because your agreement was not with society. It was with the planet itself. And here's the part most people never realize. Your contract didn't end with survival. It activates fully during transition periods, times of global instability, spiritual awakening, and mass confusion. That's why, as the world grows louder and more polarized, your inner call is becoming stronger. You're not being awakened. You're being reactivated. Because the phase you trained for is now beginning. If you've ever wondered why life seemed to press harder on you than on the people around you, Dolores Cannon gave a clear explanation. Souls born between 1955 and 1969 didn't come here to experience comfort first. They came here to withstand density. From an early age, many of you felt responsibility before you understood joy. Childhood often felt shortened, as if innocence slipped away too fast. You noticed suffering early. You sensed tension in adults. You carried emotional weight that wasn't yours. Dolores Cannon explained that these volunteer souls were intentionally placed into challenging environments, unstable homes, emotional neglect, financial pressure, or constant expectations, not as punishment, but as preparation. Pressure builds capacity, and your soul needed capacity. That's why you learned endurance instead of ease. Why you became the one others leaned on, even while you were breaking inside. Why you often felt older than your age. And later, younger than your years. Your nervous system adapted to intensity. Your awareness sharpened through struggle. But there was a cost. Many volunteers developed chronic fatigue, unexplained heaviness, or the feeling of carrying the world. Not because something was wrong with you, but because your system was processing more than most. You weren't just living your life. You were stabilizing energetic imbalance around you. Dolores Cannon noted that these souls often attract people who unload their pain onto them, without asking, without realizing it. You listen, You absorb. You hold space. Even silence around you feels safer to others. That isn't accidental. Your frequency naturally regulates chaos, which is also why happiness sometimes felt delayed. Not dramatic, but real. You weren't designed for shallow fulfillment. You were designed for inner steadiness. This is also why many of you questioned the purpose of suffering itself. You sensed there was meaning behind pain. Not religious meaning, but functional meaning. And you were right. Every hardship strengthened your ability to remain open when the world hardened. Every loss refined your compassion. Every moment of loneliness trained you to connect without attachment. Dolores Cannon said these volunteers often feel guilt when they prioritize themselves. Rest feels wrong. Saying no feels selfish. Slowing down feels dangerous. Because your soul remembers urgency, even if your mind doesn't. But here's the truth your life has been preparing you to hear. You were never meant to suffer endlessly. You were meant to endure long enough to stabilize the shift. And now that shift is underway, your role is changing. The weight you've carried is beginning to lift. Not because your mission failed, but because it worked. And what comes next requires presence, not pain. One of the most painful and misunderstood experiences for souls born between 1955 and 1969 is this quiet realization. You never fully fit anywhere. Not in childhood. Not in social groups. Not even within your own family. Sometimes not even with people who loved you. Dolores Cannon explained this clearly. You were not designed to anchor yourself to Earth identity. You were designed to observe it, stabilize it, and gently influence it. That's why many of you felt like outsiders, even when surrounded by people. You could participate, contribute, and care deeply, yet still feel slightly separate, like you were watching life through a thin veil. This wasn't social failure. It was spiritual positioning. Volunteer souls were placed between worlds, close enough to humanity to understand it, but distant enough to avoid being consumed by it. That distance protected your mission. You saw through trends early. You questioned systems before others noticed cracks. You sensed when something was wrong, even if everyone else said it was normal. Belonging too deeply would have anchored you. And anchors were not part of your contract. Many of you tried to force belonging anyway. You stayed in relationships too long. You tolerated environments that drained you. You silenced your intuition to appear normal. And every time you did, your energy dimmed, because your soul wasn't here to blend in. It was here to remain clear. This is why solitude became both a wound and a medicine. Being alone hurt, but being with the wrong people hurt more. Over time, many of you learned to choose quiet over chaos. Dolores Cannon noted that volunteer souls often feel most themselves when they are alone. Walking, thinking, creating, or simply being without performance. That's when your signal stabilizes. That's when your nervous system finally rests. And that's when guidance becomes audible again. This is also why you've experienced repeated cycles of separation. Friendships ending suddenly, jobs losing meaning overnight, familiar places feeling foreign. These weren't failures. They were recalibrations. Your soul was constantly adjusting its position as Earth frequency changed. You weren't meant to build one permanent life structure. You were meant to remain mobile, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And now, something important is happening. That lifelong sense of not belonging is slowly transforming into something else. Freedom. You're no longer searching for a place to fit. You're becoming the place others feel safe to exhale. Your presence is the ground. Your awareness is the shelter. You never lacked belonging. You were the belonging, just not for yourself. And in the next phase of your journey, that begins to change. For souls born between 1955 and 1969, exhaustion has been a constant companion, but not the kind sleep could cure. You rested. You took breaks. You stepped away, and still, The tiredness lingered. Dolores Cannon explained that this fatigue was never about the body. It was about frequency strain. Volunteer souls entered Earth, carrying higher harmonic patterns into a denser world. From childhood onward, your nervous system was translating energies it was never meant to live inside permanently. That translation costs energy. This is why many of you felt tired, even as children. Not sleepy, but drained. You woke up already exhausted, as if the day had already happened. School overwhelmed you. Crowds drained you. Noise irritated you. Repetition dulled you. Not because you were weak, but because your system was running dual awareness at all times. You were living your human life, while unconsciously monitoring the collective field. Dolores Cannon noted that volunteer souls often function as stabilizers. Without trying, you absorb emotional pressure from environments. You regulate chaos simply by being present. But that comes at a cost. You carried family stress that wasn't yours. You absorbed workplace tension you didn't create. You felt responsible for moods you didn't cause. And your body kept a score. This is why traditional rest never worked. Sleep restores muscles, not mission fatigue. What your soul needed wasn't more rest. It needed less interference, less emotional noise, less obligation, less forcing yourself into roles that required constant performance. Many of you noticed something strange as you aged. When you stopped explaining yourself, the exhaustion eased. When you reduced your circle, your energy stabilized. When you stopped chasing meaning outside yourself, your body softened. This wasn't coincidence. Your soul was teaching you energy sovereignty. Dolores Cannon often described this generation as the burnout bridge. Souls who carried the heaviest load so others wouldn't have to. You entered during unstable decades. You held steady through cultural fractures. You absorbed the pressure of transitions no one else understood yet. That tiredness was evidence of work done, not work undone. And now, something subtle is changing. Many of you feel a different kind of tired. Quieter, deeper, but less painful. It's not depletion anymore. It's completion fatigue. The weight is lifting. The strain is easing. The constant vigilance is softening. Your body is finally receiving the message your soul has known for years. You don't have to hold everything together anymore. The frequency is stabilizing. The load is redistributing. And your system is learning what rest actually feels like. Not collapse, but peace. You weren't tired because you failed. You were tired because you succeeded for longer than anyone realized. And now, your energy is being returned to you. For those born between 1955 and 1969, something unmistakable begins to happen after the age of 50. It's quiet, unannounced, and impossible to explain to anyone who hasn't felt it. You stop striving, not out of apathy, but because the inner pressure that once pushed you forward suddenly loosens its grip. Dolores Cannon spoke about this phase as the release window. The moment volunteer souls are finally allowed to disengage from constant service mode. Before this age, you were holding the line. After it, you are stepping back. Many of you noticed changes that felt confusing at first. Your tolerance for chaos vanished. Your desire to argue disappeared. Your interest in proving anything faded. You no longer felt drawn to crowds, noise, or unnecessary drama. Social obligations that once felt manageable suddenly felt heavy, even intrusive. This wasn't withdrawal. It was recalibration. Your soul was shifting from active stabilization to passive anchoring. You no longer needed to fix, rescue, or carry others. Your mere presence had already done the work. Dolores Cannon explained that once a volunteer soul completes its primary assignment, the nervous system begins to stand down. That's why many of you experience a sudden need for solitude, a pull toward nature or silence, less interest in material goals, a sharper sensitivity to truth and falsehood, an inability to tolerate inauthentic relationships, you're not becoming cold. You're becoming precise. Your soul is trimming excess, people, patterns, expectations, because it no longer needs to spread energy thinly across the world. This activation is also why many of you feel a strange mix of peace and grief. Peace, because the struggle is easing. Grief, because you realize how long you carried what was never meant to be permanent. Memories resurface. Old emotions release. You finally see how much you gave. And instead of bitterness, something else arrives. Understanding. You stop asking, why was my life so hard? And start feeling, now I see what it was for. Dolores Cannon emphasized that this phase isn't about awakening that already happened decades ago. This phase is about permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to choose quiet over productivity. Permission to live simply without explaining yourself. Your soul no longer needs to prove its value. The mission didn't end, it completed. And what replaces effort is not emptiness. It's presence. A steady, grounded awareness that gently influences everything around you, without force, without exhaustion, without sacrifice. You're no longer pushing light into the world. You're becoming the place it settles. As the years continue to unfold for those born between 1955 and 1969, the final stage of your volunteer mission begins to manifest. Dolores Cannon described this phase as the harvest of influence, when the work you've done on Earth, often unseen and unacknowledged, begins to ripple outward in ways you might never have imagined. By now, you've experienced the intense challenges of life, the struggles with relationships, careers, health, and society. All of it was part of the training ground, designed to shape your soul for this final act of service. These are the crucibles that forged your resilience, wisdom, and deep compassion. Now, the universe allows you to step back and watch the fruits of your labor emerge. The volunteer souls of this generation are no longer required to constantly intervene. Instead, your presence alone has become a stabilizing force. People around you, often unaware of why, feel calmer, safer, and inspired simply by your energy. You radiate a frequency of completion and alignment, a blueprint for how life can be lived with integrity, courage, and love. Dolores Cannon emphasized that the challenges you faced were never punishments. They were calibration exercises, designed to activate your ability to anchor light in a chaotic world. Every hardship, every heartbreak, every moment of exhaustion was an energetic investment, building your capacity to become a conduit of stability and higher consciousness. This stage also brings clarity. Many volunteer souls notice a shift in perception. Life's trivial dramas lose their grip. Social games, material obsession, and external validation no longer matter. Instead, your focus sharpens on what truly resonates with your soul: authenticity, connection, and alignment with the natural rhythms of life. For some, this manifests as a desire to teach, guide, or mentor. For others, it's a need for silence, solitude, or immersion in nature. All are equally valuable. The goal is not uniformity but harmony, harmonizing with your own soul, with the planet, and with the energy of the next generation that is now stepping up to continue the work. Dolores Cannon also warned of the subtle temptation at this stage, looking back with regret. The volunteer soul may question, did I do enough? Did I make the right choices? The answer, she assured, is always yes. Every act of courage, love, and endurance contributed to the cosmic plan. Even the smallest choices mattered. Finally, the ultimate gift of this life stage is legacy beyond the material world. Your energy imprints on the planet, on your family line, and on the collective consciousness. You become part of a subtle network of souls that anchor higher vibration long after you have returned to the spiritual realms. Dolores Cannon described it as planting seeds in the soil of time, seeds that will bloom for generations to come. So, for the volunteers born between 1955 and 1969, the hardest mission is concluding. The struggles that once defined you are dissolving. What remains is wisdom, peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that your soul answered the call. And the world, even in ways unseen, is brighter because of it. You were chosen. You volunteered. You endured. And now you shine silently, a lighthouse for all who follow. This is your final mission completed, your reward, and your lasting gift to the earth.